Hi, I'm Kathy Minter, and welcome back to part two of Selling the Cloud. We've been having a great conversation with Kevin Knieriem, Executive Vice President of Clari, about all things data and AI and how the new landscape is really affecting revenue leaders. So let's jump right back in. Thanks.
So Kevin, anytime you go and you get new technology and you change your processes, there's risk and pitfalls with that, and you see this with your client base every day. So let's look at the other side for a second. What challenges do some companies face with leveraging this technology, and can sometimes moving too fast in this approach backfire on a CRO?
So a couple, I guess, lessons learned here. One, if you're going to put in place a revenue platform or honestly, anything, adoption starts at the top. So that CRO has got to be bought in to running the business in a collaborative, data-driven way, and needs to ensure that there's adoption happening at all levels in the organization, because this really becomes the platform for running the revenue cadences. Two, many customers are thinking about a go-to-market model shift. Maybe it's attacking enterprise, putting more resources against the enterprise. Maybe it's they're transitioning to PLG. Maybe they've brought on a consumption part of their business. Maybe they've done an acquisition. Those things need to be thought through, because you've got system change that's going to happen. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is surface the data that allows you to make better decisions on your business, be more strategic and more predictable as you go forward. And so typically we ask a lot of questions, right? We want to understand the go-to-market. We want to understand what they're trying to achieve, what changes they need to make, where data lives today, get a handle on all of that, and then instrument all those revenue moments so that they can be driven in a repeatable way. But I'd say that, to repeat, the two biggest things are starts at the top, and to really understand the go-to-market motions that you want to run.
You know, just shifting gears a little bit to the new world of AI, right? Do most CROs even really know what AI driven means, and how to use it, what it is in your kind of, when you think about that? So how would you, if you have a newbie sort of coming to the
Yeah.
stage, how would you say, sort of like, I know I need to be using AI, to help run my, organization. What is that really, and how do they use it?
By the way, obviously there's a lot here, and everybody's trying a lot of things. And so I've kind of distilled it down into three areas. The first is, let's start with the hottest topic that's out there, generative, right? What really is generative AI used for? For me, it's productivity improvements. How can we take things that are common tasks that my sales reps, SDRs, customer success team needs to do on a daily basis, and use generative AI to do it in a quick and reproducible way, where they're not spending time doing it, but a machine's doing it for them. The machine surfacing it into a way where they can then actually use it more productivity. I'll give you an example. If I'm a sales rep and I'm having a call with you, Kathy, I want to record that call. I want a call summary at the end of it, and I want an email ready to go out with all the follow-up actions that I didn't have to take notes on, I didn't have to draft, and it went out in a format that my company wanted to. That's a time saver in a big way for me. So there's a lot of generative AI use cases up and down the hierarchy and across the revenue critical team. The second one, is things like descriptive, right? How do we really think about, analyzing and describing what's happening in the business and surfacing exceptions so that we can make decisions? And then finally, there's predictive. How do we help the humans see where they're going, right? So that they can be a more strategic partner to their company on where to place bets, where to spend money, what commitments to make to their leaders or the executive staff of the company. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I'm seeing it evolve right now. And for the CRO, I think the big thing is thinking about is, how do I get more efficient in how I run my go-to-market operations? How do I get more visibility into the risk? And how do I get more visibility into where our business is going so that I can help guide at the board level the investments we need to make or not make in the company.
I
So
think that
Kevin, one thing that I deal a lot with my clients as well is this concept of, yes, the productivity, and I'm 100% on board with you with that. And that's a big game changer, and it should be leveraged to its fullest. But one of the things that it also brings is the ability for sales reps to become more strategic again. And if you remember, and you probably have done this as well. 15, 20 years ago was kind of more typically used this concept of going to a senior account leader, account manager, and saying, you're the CEO of your territory. And, there's things we want you to be doing and leveraging, and we want you to own this and own some of the strategy. Now, in a lot of ways, we've taken some of that out of the equation because we built processes that we really want to be followed, and we have guided selling, so we really want to, drive that. But when I come back to generative AI, I look at it and say, okay, but what's great about it is you can give them the time to be more strategic. That, and I think that's another game changer. Now, again, that's not as relevant for a BDR, or someone that is, we're not expecting too much strategy or new fresh thinking out of them. But that can be challenged as well. There's some benefit
I'll
of
give you an
it.
example, and I'll actually challenge you, Mark, there.
Yeah,
So I've got a meeting with the CEO of a public company tomorrow afternoon.
awesome.
And it's sort of an introduction. So neither of us have met before, right? And probably don't know a lot about each other's company. I asked one of we call them RDRs, revenue development reps, can you very quickly pull together for me the strategic growth initiatives of this company and anything you can learn on the go-to-market so that I can have a better outside-in picture of their business? And oh, by the way, can you, analyze that against their last earnings release? They were able to do that really quickly using, generative AI and asking some questions. So I think it actually gives RDRs or SDRs an opportunity to change their role, because a lot of the role is being automated, right, with engagement systems, et cetera, where they can now be a more strategic partner to the AE, sales rep, account manager that they support out in the field. So I see generative AI as actually helping certain roles become more strategic, efficient, versus being marginalized by automation.
I like it.
I guess in terms of other advice to give CROs coming in, and I think we talk about just the sheer magnitude of the number of, I guess, technologies out there, right? And I really liked your description actually of the three on the sort of generative and descriptive and predictive. That was a good way to lay that down. Are there things that they should not be doing with AI, I guess? Are there things that they shouldn't be relying on or not using or not have, where is the intuition or the human element? Yeah. Where must that still come in?
Look, you can obviously get overanalyzed by data, or have too much data at your hands and you can't make decisions. So I think it's really, if you understand, as a CRO, if you understand what you signed up to do in the job, right? And we all know this, the average tenure of a CRO is 18 months. It's a hard job, right? And you're only as good as what you delivered that last quarter. And so what I was trying to help people think through is, how do you go from living quarter to quarter to guiding a company year over year? And how do you build the trust that you need with your executive staff and the board to continue in the role so that you actually can accomplish what you wanted to do when you came there, versus getting stuck in the quarter that you're in each environment? So how do you start to leverage data and analytics and AI to, move your go-to-market agenda forward? And so I think if it promotes, the go-to-market initiatives that you signed up to deliver for the company, gives you visibility into it. If it's working, it's not. If it helps you move faster, so think about hiring, ramping, and getting reps productive, then it's additive. I think a big challenge today is there's just so much out there and it's being done in piecemeal through organizations. So it's not consistent on a global basis. It's applied differently across different teams. So you're still having to decipher what you might hear from team A versus team B versus business unit C. So getting to a common platform and then leveraging, AI across that in a systematic, repeatable way will allow you to be more strategic.
I have a
You know,
question because this
Yeah.
happened. So, what do you do in a situation where the data comes in and it clearly marks a decision that needs to be made? Like
Yep.
it's screaming, like we should be exiting this segment or, move product in a different way, but you fundamentally don't believe the data. So there's like this data driven and then the human, like, how would you handle that situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, not to do a commercial for my solution, but I've been there at Clari. So I'll never forget, we started hiring very quickly in EMEA about 2 years ago, because we saw a signal that we were doing well. So we hired really fast. We hired great people, but just really fast. And I could pretty quickly see in the data something wasn't adding up, right? I was getting doing my bottoms up and getting my call for the quarter. The machine was telling me something else. And what I quickly found from the data was they just weren't following the process because we ramped them too fast. And so I was able to go pinpoint an issue, slow it down, get them to follow the process, and very quickly course correct so that I actually could predict, with a lot more accuracy or, call the number for that business. So there's a lot of at times where you'll see something in the data and you want to go analyze it. And so I think what a CRO and a RevOps team needs is that ability to actually look at, do I trust the machine or the data? And do I have the tools to understand why the machine and I are calling something differently or the data and I are calling something differently? And you know, what's been great is I've had that at my fingertips where I've been able to actually by myself, Kathy, without having to go ask an army of analysts to figure out why I don't agree.
excellent. Kevin, can you share a story, an example of a company that you have worked with where you really feel that they have been able to leverage this data driven approach, this technology in a really special way without, of course, sharing anything confidential or too specific? But does any idea, any example come up where you just you saw this business evolve into a different business or a different culture, and of course a better one in each step?
I mean, thanks for that question. Obviously, a lot of examples here. I've been evolved myself, but I think of a customer, and I'll embarrass him, Joe Vitalone, CRO of Extreme Networks, who is one of my heroes. I'll never forget when Joe started at Extreme. He had never used Clari before, but they were a Clari customer, and so he was stepping into a big job and had signed up for, a really hard growth path ahead of things he had to do, and I'll never forget. I typically reach out to a new CRO when they come on and say, "Hey, I'd love to a chance to connect and on board." And first thing I got back from Joe, he goes, "Kevin, I don't know how I would have stepped into this job so quickly if I hadn't had the level of visibility that your solution has provided to me already. I feel like I've been handed something that in the past would have taken me months and months to get my arms around." And so he goes, "One, I want to be your best customer because I think there's so much more I can now do because you've allowed me to fast forward." And what Joe was able to do is not just run his revenue teams, through a common process with Clari, but Joe brought on his partner teams, his services team. So think about an Extreme Networks business, right? They have direct business and indirect business, a managed service business, SaaS business, hardware, everything you can imagine, super complex. And he was able to instrument all of that in the solution. And the other thing he said to me was, I've never had anything that's allowed me to do real skip level and have a conversation with the reps and the leaders in a big organization like that, where we could have a very efficient conversation around the reality of their business. And eventually they were even able to bring their HR organization into the platform because now HR was able to go, okay, I'm comparing, I have the ability to compare, right? Rep to rep, manager to manager, and we can help based on what we're seeing from those good reps that really do well we can now tailor sales, sales classes and coaching based on what the good reps are doing because we see it in the data and get that out to everybody. So that was an interesting one where I saw use case for this slip into a completely different department than we typically saw.
Kevin, I have a little bit of funny story myself, I am a Clari user, not to talk about Clari, but more of the visibility of data from that SDR to the CEO, right? And when you use this data-driven approach and you have the windows into the data, and there are different windows at all levels of the organization, it does change because you can't hide in your spreadsheet anymore, right? You can't be like, okay, like this is our forecast for the week, and then RevOps produces it up. It's completely transparent. So at Docker, we trained Steve Singh on this system. He'd never used it. And all of a sudden as CEO, it was like, he'd laugh. It was like, we kind of created a monster because he was literally then in this thing. But it was like at the CEO level, seeing the organizational sales data or having transparency to that data driven really was then, I think, even, unlocking a lot of questions and a lot of ways to look at it. So it's kind of a funny thing, but I'd say that goes up the chain as well as down the chain, and in just AI and the data and Clari aside, how you use it. So yeah, I can appreciate that story from before.
It's funny. Steve loved it so much he had to invest.
Yeah,
in Clari.
You have us to thank for that. Yeah, probably.
Thank you, Kathy, and joined our board. But I will say this, Steve,
Yeah.
you are my best sales rep. Thank you for all you do.
That's so funny. Yeah, he did. It clicked right away, and he was like, "Oh my God," calling everyone in all hours of the day. So we were like, "Oh gosh, turn off his Clari, all right," But it was pretty funny. But
he's still in it.
Yeah.
He loves to watch the quarter close.
All right, are we on Roundup yet, Mark, or not
Yeah,
yet?
let's close this up, Kevin. This has been great. Let's do a little rapid fire if you,
All right.
if you don't mind. Okay, favorite CEO that you like to follow?
Bill McDermott.
Awesome. Other than a Clari product tool every CRO should be using.
LinkedIn.
Love it. Things you wish the 21-year-old you knew.
Oh my God. I'd say don't be in such a rush.
Love it. Okay, how will the role of the CRO continue to evolve in 2024?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to continue to be super data driven. It's probably one of the most critical roles in a company today, guiding through this, especially if you're in tech, guiding through this macroeconomic headwinds. And if you're in tech, right, you really are thinking about the continuous customer journey. And so I think the role continues to expand to own that full continuous customer journey.
I want to ask you a follow-up to that,
Yeah.
Kevin, because in some companies like Sixth Sense, and I've seen this around the industry, the marketing CMOs and the CROs are getting sort of combined, or where we would never think of having a CMO be promoted into CRO or vice versa, or combining.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What's going on there and why?
Yeah, a couple. I mean, my own personal journey at Clari, joined as CRO and ended up, picking up marketing, customer success, service, and support because of that continuous customer journey. And in this environment, right, producing top of funnel is probably the most critical thing because it's gotten harder. And so those that have this skill set to really think of, so the type of CMOs that companies are looking for today are those that are top of funnel and demand gen experts, not necessarily branding category experts. And so, and for many companies, right, that are PLG like, that, the product drives the sale, they're having to be data driven and they're having to be very much students of top of funnel and demand gen. So I think that's why you're seeing the two come together.
Awesome. All right, tell us about your first sales role.
There's a couple, if you give me just two. So I had a Philadelphia Inquirer route when I was a kid. So that was 5 o'clock in the morning. You'd get up, wrap your papers, and ride around the neighborhood and pass them out. The hard part of the job was collecting the money, which you had to do in person. And you also had to sell. So you would go door to door to collect, but you would go door to door to get additional subscriptions in. So that was my first pseudo sales job. My second, which you won't actually see on my LinkedIn, but I took a little hiatus in my first job from Anderson Consulting and went to a company called Lever Brothers. And I had a territory of supermarkets and convenience stores in the 5 boroughs in New York. And my job was to compete against Procter & Gamble, who had more money to buy better shelf space. And so I had to find a way to get better shelf space to compete. And what I would do on the weekends is I would offer to reset the aisle take everything off, clean the shelves, print new labels if they would give me better shelf space. So I turned a sales job into grunt work, but it paid
Yeah.
off. But thankfully found my way back into tech.
I love it. I love it. And I wonder, I have to find out our third co-host, Paul Melchiori. I know he sold
Yeah.
well, he delivered a newspaper. I don't know if it was the Philadelphia Inquirer, but you guys may have been, co-workers there at some point. But he did it in Wildwood, New Jersey. So he
All right.
went, spent the whole summers there delivering papers.
That's awesome. Well, I'm from South Jersey, and we did summer sometimes in Wildwood.
That's awesome. Excellent. Okay, favorite sales book.
Yeah, like if you know me, I'm a more of a big history book person, but I'd say my favorite sales or business book I'm going to combine here was one I read last year called "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, and it's really about, you think about that thing that stands in front of you that you think is an obstacle that's not going to allow you to succeed actually can become the thing that allows you to succeed. And we all know that when we focus on something and grind through it, it actually becomes, in many cases, like a superpower. So that was a really good book, and it's a quick read.
Awesome. And then I want to hear more on the history side. What do you feel is the most powerful history based book you've read?
There's been a lot of books I've read on history, and I'm kind of a student of U.S. history. But the one that got me into it was a book that was more fiction than nonfiction. It was called Killer Angels. It was a Civil War book. I'm kind of stuck in that era.
Very,
That's
very
good.
cool. Well, Kevin, thank you again for joining us. I'd like to thank our awesome audience for joining us again as well. And Kathy, thanks for joining us
Thanks.
as well.
Thanks, Kevin.
You
That's
bet, Mark and
great.
Kathy.
Lots of
Thanks
fun.
again. It was so much fun.
All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care.